So I wanted to share some really great takeaways from this Tapestry conference that we went to today. It was an all-day event, and we had three breakout sessions. We had a lunch session, and we got to meet some really amazing people. There was a few portions of it that I totally enjoyed more so than the others, but the three different classes or sessions that we attended, the first session was called Meltdown Moments, and it was hosted by a company called Halo Projects. And basically, they talked about, when you have adoptive children or your adoptive parent and you have foster children in your home, some ways to kind of alleviate some of the issues that you have with meltdowns. And so it was a good class. It was preparing us for the future, far years in the future, because we're in the infant adoption program and we may not have any meltdowns that we can manage in that way right up front. Totally beneficial. The second breakout session that we had was called Maybe It's Me. And I think this was my favorite one because it talked about re-evaluating your childhood, evaluating the reasons why you want to adopt, and what are some of the behaviors that you're going to see in your child that throw red flags in how you deal with them as far as the things that you've experienced in your childhood. So for instance, he gave an example of as a child, well, this is the guest speaker, he said as a child he was always made to sit at the table and have proper eating habits and sit up straight. You have to eat with a fork and a knife and all this stuff. Well, when he adopted his son came from a really traumatic home life, and he had to sit at the table, but he had to be facing an exit, first of all, and then he couldn't sit down. He would sit halfway on the chair because he always had to be prepared to run. And that's how he felt, that he had to always be prepared to run out of the door if there happened to be some upflare and he felt like he was in danger. So it annoyed him to the point where it was just like, this child just will not stay still. He won't sit at the table. What is wrong? And it wasn't until he reevaluated his childhood and how he was affected emotionally by just the mere fact that, he was made to sit at the table and stay still and eat all your food on your plate. And just kind of preparing us for the idea that this is a totally different realm of ways that you need to deal with these situations. And so I found that class really beneficial. And then we broke out for lunch, and they had Chick-fil-A, which was really good. And my doctor's not going to be very happy with me knowing that I eat Chick-fil-A, because last time I posted something about food, my doctor got on me about eating Sam's pizza, but it's okay. Shh, don't tell her. I won't tell her, and she probably won't find out. If you're watching, sorry. So the lunch breakout session was a segment called Love and Guidance in our America. And boy, I tell you, this was really like hit home on all the key points that it's kind of a big elephant in the room type of conversation. They talked about being black in America. They talked about interracial and multiracial adoptions, and they talked about the racial tension and that is in the transracial realities in our community. And so the speaker was actually African American. She was black. And she just went up there and she just told us how it was. She said, I live in suburbia, my kids are black, we don't have any adoptive kids, but, she just gave the rundown of, what you need to do if you're white and you're adopting a black child. I mean, she talked about things like, if they have a certain type of hair, they can't go swimming, and you have to do their hair. You have to invest time in doing their hair. She talked about just different things that were kind of cliche, and they were really, really funny. And I'll show a video of really some things that hit home. Also, our third session was discipline is more than punishment. They talked about how you just have to restructure your lifestyle. If you are wanting to raise a family and build your family, that consists of adoptions and fostering. And part of that is being able to adapt to meet the needs of everyone in the family. So it's not just about me and Mike. It's not just about Astra. It's not just about Mike. It's about our little one and how he or she changes the dynamic in our family and us adapting to that. And of course, spanking and our culture, African American culture, spare the rod, spoil the child. So we've taken a whole different approach to what our culture deems as, expected. The expectations, you get whoopings. I got whoopings. I don't know I think Mike got whoopings. I'm pretty sure he did, but we're not going to whoop our children. And so that was really beneficial. The most impactful thing I think I could take away from this conference was at the end when they were talking about, just the impact that, each family that chooses to adopt has in the big picture of things. They talked about current events. They talked about what's going on in our world, preparing our children. And really what I was able to get from that was we have to set a level of expectation for the legacy that we want to lead and how we want our family to be. And we were introduced to something, well, the acronym is TBRI, and it's called Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And whether we're adopting, because, in the future we plan on adopting an older child. This first adoption will be an infant adoption program, but in the future, of course, we want to open our home to other options, older children. And so what this is the way that we run our family, the way that they the way that we do business. And it's a parenting technique that, is just amazing. They have so many different programs. I can't name all the resources that we were able to get, but we definitely want to visit next year. And, if you want to find out more information about, I'll put in the details, the links of the resources that we have, the different organizations that were there. They had vendors there. They had guest speakers from all over the U.S. that flew in for these 2 days. And it was amazing. It was an awesome experience. And it cost $15 for a ticket for 1 day. It's totally worth it. I'm just, as I'm talking, I'm sharing, different clips. And I had someone ask me if I could just share my experience. And so that kind of sums up. I thought it was very beneficial. We met some great people. Actually, in the lunch session, it was kind of like an icebreaker. And, the speaker was, of course, I said she was African American, and she said, if you're raising African American children and they don't know that they're African American, you have a problem. Okay. So, and she said, you have to be able to love. You can't expect for your child to love someone that you don't love yourself. And so she just said, do you have African American children or people in your life that can relate to your children can relate to, and vice versa. There was an African American couple there that has adopted a white child, and they said, well, we don't have any white friends in our life. I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, that we are so fortunate to have just a multicultural village, friends that are here. I mean, we have friendships of every race, and I can't see it any differently. But it just to see the impact that it had on other families that didn't know that it's not okay for their child to be raised in an all-white community and never have any exposure to African, and then they're seeing all these everything that's going on right now in society with just race. I don't want to say race war, but really just all the violence that's going on, and they don't understand. And when they look at themselves in the mirror, they don't see an African American. I mean, it was just mind blowing. So, it really encourages me to want to be more a part of this process than just being an adoptive parent. I think that both Mike and I have a heart to do more in the ministry, and this was just the beginning, and I'm excited about it. And there's so much that we learn. I didn't even hit the peak of, all the things that we covered today, but I just wanted to share just a few key points and some takeaways that we experienced today. So thanks for listening if you have lasted the entire video. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
By any means necessary, we say get home safe. And it's because our world is changing. America is changing. And as much as we would want to say things aren't really happening, they really kind of are. So if you are that family that turns off the television or turns off the radio or avoids social media or the internet, you might want to click something back on, because there's so many things that are going on that you cannot deny or avoid or get around or whatever, because your kids are going to probably date interracially.
Early medical trauma. I think the second one should, instead of saying difficult labor and delivery, so they should say more difficult than regular labor and delivery. Abuse, neglect, and then all other kinds of trauma in their lives. Everybody has seen this list before and read the books and stuff? Okay. So we're not gonna, okay? So why does it matter? Right? Because this list over here, while it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, my kid needs that, my kid needs that, and not so much that one, my kid needs that, my kid needs that. Well, have you ever looked at yourself through that list? Because I bet that most of you are going to check 2, some of you are going to check 4. For a few of you will check
away. Just about 45 seconds. Because you need to preempt their ask, right? You need to preempt their ask. So that time that you're away at the very beginning when you're teaching this is really short. And then over time, it gets bigger and bigger. And please, if you say you're coming back, please go back. I know all y'all will, but sometimes there's people that don't go back because they forget and they get on their phone or they get distracted with the other kids, which is legit, right? Not the phone, unless it's an emergency or a huge pay raise, which we don't get as social workers. So you're gonna go back.